They gave my job to the woman I trained, and 3 weeks later, they needed me to save the account she couldn't keep. Gerald stood at the front of the conference room, smiling like he was handing me a gift, and said, "Diane, we think you'd be more comfortable in a support role." Then he asked me to have my desk cleared by Friday. Bree sat in the second row, the girl I had mentored for 6 years, the girl I had defended in rooms she wasn't ready to enter yet. She looked down at her hands. She didn't say a single word. "My name is Diane. I'm 52, and for 11 years I ran the biggest account at Hartwell & Cole. Not the flashy accounts, the one that mattered. Delgado Foods, a family company, 400 trucks, 3 generations. They were a third of our revenue, and for 11 years, they were mine. Not because of a title. Because Frank Delgado picked up the phone when I called, and nobody else. I came in early. I knew every name. I remembered which of Frank's grandkids had the soccer game. People used to say the firm ran on coffee and Diane. I thought that meant they valued me. I didn't understand that. To them, it meant the machine would keep running after they removed my name from it. 6 years ago, a nervous 23-year-old named Bree started as my assistant. She reminded me of myself at that age. Sharp, hungry, terrified of being found out. So I took her under my wing. I taught her everything. How to read a client before he says a word. I let her sit in on the Delgado calls. I put her name on work so she'd get noticed. I drove to her apartment the night her father died and sat with her until 2 a.m. I loved that girl. I want you to understand that before I tell you the rest. I loved her like she was mine. Last spring, the firm brought in Gerald to tighten things up. That meant cost-cutting, younger faces, cleaner charts, and fewer people asking how things actually worked. Then the paper trail started changing. The Delgado renewal. I closed in March had Bree's name on the cover memo. The quarterly strategy I wrote showed up in her presentation folder. A client save I handled at 9:40 on a Sunday night became Bree's proactive retention plan by Monday morning. She didn't steal with both hands. She just let the room hand things to her. And once, in the break room, I heard her tell Gerald, lightly, like it was nothing, "Diane's great, but she's a little old school for where we're going." I told myself I'd misheard. I'm very good at giving people one more chance than they deserve. The all hands was on a Tuesday. Gerald announced the new account leadership structure. Bree would be senior account director. The Delgado relationship would transition to her with fresh energy. And me, I would move to a support role and help with the handoff. He said it like a demotion became kinder if you lowered your voice. Then he clapped, as if I should be grateful for being erased politely. 40 people clapped with him. Bree stood up, smoothed her blazer, and said, "I'm so grateful for this opportunity." She did not look at me. And then Gerald turned and asked me, in front of all of them, to have my desk cleared by Friday so Bree could settle in. I understood something cold and clear. To them, I was overhead. A line item. The expensive old version of Bree. I didn't argue. I've watched people argue in rooms like that. It never works. It just gives them the story they wanted. Difficult, emotional, past her prime. So I stood up. I went to my desk. I took my chipped blue mug, the one I'd had for 11 years. I took the little brass nameplate, and I left everything else exactly where it was. Because everything else was theirs. On the drive home, I didn't cry. But mostly I felt quiet, like a phone that finally stopped ringing. Here's what Gerald didn't know. What Bree, for all I taught her, never understood. 4 years ago, Frank Delgado's wife, Carol, was dying. The whole industry knew Delgado Foods was in transition. 3 of our competitors circled. And Frank, proud, exhausted Frank, stopped returning everyone's calls. Everyone's but mine. I didn't pitch him. I drove down with a casserole and sat on his porch and let the man talk about his wife for 2 hours. I covered his account myself for 4 months while he buried her, and I never once mentioned a contract. Frank told me the day Carol's headstone went in, "Diane, I don't do business with companies. I do business with people. As long as you're there, I'm there." The contract said Hartwell and Cole. Frank only ever meant me. And there was one more thing Gerald never read closely. Delgado's renewal had a 30-day relationship review clause. Standard language, buried near the back, the kind of thing people skim when they think loyalty is automatic. Frank didn't have to stay if the relationship changed. He only had to say it had. The quarterly review was 3 weeks later. Bree stood at the front with her slides and her fresh energy. She had my numbers, my client history, my renewal plan, even the color-coded risk chart I had built on a Sunday night. She was 10 minutes in when Frank Delgado raised one hand. The room went quiet. He looked at Bree, then at Gerald, then at the empty chair where I used to sit. "I'm sorry," he said. "Where's Diane?" Bree smiled too quickly. "Diane has moved on to other priorities. I'll be your point of contact going forward." Frank buttoned his jacket. 70 years old, and somehow the smallest movement in that room sounded louder than Gerald's whole speech. "No," Frank said. "I don't think she moved on. I think you moved her." Gerald tried to laugh. "Frank, this is just a leadership transition." Frank looked at him and said, "Then consider this my relationship review." Nobody breathed. "I told Diane once I don't do business with companies. I do business with people. She's the person. You can keep the slides." Then he walked out. 400 trucks walked out with him. Gerald called me that night. First time he'd ever called my cell. His voice was a completely different instrument. Warm, careful, almost human. "Diane, there's been a misunderstanding," he said. "We value you tremendously." 1/3 of the firm's revenue had just put on its coat, and suddenly I was not overhead. Suddenly I was essential. He offered me my title back, then a raise, then Bree's job, and then he finally said the sentence he had been circling the whole time. "Can you call Frank?" There it was. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "We were wrong." Just one more request for me to clean up a room they had made dirty without me. I let him finish. It costs nothing to let a man finish. I said no. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just no. Not to punish them. I was past punishing them. I said no because I finally understood what loyalty had meant in that building. They wanted mine when it protected them, and they discounted it when it belonged to me. You don't go back to a room that only learns your value from the sound of the door closing. I didn't badmouth Bree. I didn't post anything. The quietest power I have ever felt was hanging up that phone and pouring coffee into a chipped blue mug in my own kitchen. It's been a year. I run a small consulting firm now. 3 people. A rented office over a bakery. My name actually on the door this time. Frank Delgado was my first client. He signed before I'd even printed business cards. "Told you," he said. "People." I hired a quiet, anxious 24-year-old named Theo, who everyone else overlooked. I'm teaching him everything. And Bree. Bree emailed me in the spring. The firm had let her go after Delgado left. She said she was sorry. She said she had watched me do it right for 6 years and still chose the easy chair when they offered it to her. I answered her. 2 lines. "I'm not angry, Bree, But don't become the kind of person who lets a room erase someone and calls it opportunity. The world has enough Geralds. They could give Bree my title. They could put her name on my reports, my slides, my renewal plans, my 11 years. They just couldn't give her the reason Frank picked up the phone. Because trust doesn't transfer in a meeting. Loyalty doesn't move because someone updates an org chart. And the quiet work people don't notice is usually the work holding the whole place together. If you've ever been the person keeping something alive while everyone else called you replaceable, I want to hear it. What did they only value after you stopped carrying it? Tell me below. And take care of yourself. Care of.